Hi folks, I thought I'd make a quick film today about my back garden because I'll be talking about the back garden and all the wildlife that lives in it in the coming weeks and months. So I thought I'd give you a guided tour to show you what's here. Now, we moved in about 8 or 9 years ago, and when we came here it was all paving slabs and gravel and neat little flower beds and rose beds. Well, I've got no time for that sort of nonsense, so I tore it all out. And over the last 8 years or so we've tried to improve the garden for wildlife. I have to apologise because in the last few years we haven't really had much time to come into the garden for many reasons. It's got a bit overgrown, it's kind of got away from us a bit. But now I find I have lots of time and nowhere to go, so it's a great opportunity to improve the garden for wildlife this summer. Now, where shall I start the tour? Let's go over here. Let's go in the corner over here. When we moved in there was lots of this going on. There's loads of little statues. Here's a pig with a wheelbarrow. Now, I can't stand that pig, so I'm going to get rid of that pig this year. That's one job for me. Here, well, I'm a bit embarrassed about this. This is my beautiful wildlife pond here. When I first moved in, the first thing I wanted was a garden pond, because garden ponds are a great thing for wildlife. One of the best things you can do for wildlife in your garden is stick a pond in, no matter how big. Now, in the last few years, it's got really overgrown, and the pond itself, it's in there somewhere, is all got bunged up and choked up with pondweed and needs to be cleared out. So quite a big job, but something to do this year. Now, down in this corner of the garden there's a nice bit of ivy. Now, ivy is fantastic for wildlife, especially insects later in the year. It's a nice late nectar source for bees and butterflies and hoverflies. Also great for birds to nest in and shelter in as well. Down here by the fence, a few years ago when David Bowie died, I came into the garden with a glass of wine. It's about 4 years ago now, wasn't it? A glass of wine and a drill. Probably not a good combination, but I found a bit of wood and I drilled loads of different size holes in it. And these holes are great for nesting bees. So I'll come back in the garden later in the year and I'll show you the bees using those holes. Over here we have the hedge I planted. I'm quite proud of this. It's grown pretty well. There's some blackthorn and hawthorn and hazel, some spindle and a field maple in there, and a nice ash tree that's doing pretty well for now. There's the ash tree. Down over here, what's this? Oh, there's a bird feeder there filled with my hair. Up here we have one of the best bits of the garden is this huge sallow tree. Now, this tree is great for birds. It's always full of birds in there. This time of year it's really good for bumblebees and bees, a nice early source of nectar. Down over here there's a very unusually shaped pond which needs to be tidied up. There's some deck chairs here. This is the dark corner of the garden over here. A bit of shade. There's a wild service tree we planted. Up there is where the song thrush sings in the morning. There's a load of old rhubarb down there. Over here we have the garden waste bins. Here's the kitchen compost bin here. Always look inside because you find some nice slugs and worms in here. There's a load of kitchen waste in there today. Won't laugh too loud, I'll be eating that stuff in a few weeks when the food runs out. Over here is the greenhouse. Now, I can't go in the greenhouse because the greenhouse is home to the biggest house spider in the northern hemisphere. She is massive. There's a huge spider in there, and until she moves out I can't go in. So we need to have a talk with her this year and arrange something about that. Over here we have some fennel, which is all dead now, but I planted this a few years ago in the very, very vain hope that a swallowtail butterfly would come and lay eggs on it. I'm still waiting. Now down over here, past that, we have the bay tree. Here's the barbecue area. Back in the days when you were allowed to have friends around your house and have a barbecue. Hasn't been cleaned since last July, I don't think. I think my food hygiene's more risky than the coronavirus. Now, down here there's a few more statues. There's Laurel and Hardy down there. Over here, behind the currant bush. Who's over here? Well, who's down here? Let's have a look. It's Ian Botham, of course. There he is, the cricketer Ian Botham. I don't like Ian Botham, and I don't know how he's lasted 8 years, but he's for the chop as well in 2020. Now, down here is the best bit of the garden. It's my wildflower meadow. It's a bit grassy and green at the minute, but in a few weeks and months' time it's going to come alive with loads of wildflowers, loads of colour, and it'll be alive with insects and butterflies and bees and grasshoppers and crickets. It is absolutely amazing. So I'll keep you updated on the wildflower meadow as it starts to emerge. And until then, I'll sign off, but stay safe. I'll keep reporting what's happening in my back garden.